Coming up in today's episode.
Even today, Christians face a lot of persecution. Pastors are physically being beaten. And in fact, my boys at the orphanage, they go to a public school and they talk about Jesus, and the school know that they are coming from a Christian school and they are being persecuted every single day.
Somebody had taken a video on their phone. I think the kids were like 12, 10, 12, 13 years old, and they were being beaten by adults with these long poles.
I think the more they interact with it, it's just going to ingrain the message into their little hearts.
Welcome to the iBIBLE podcast with Steve Cleary, brought to you by RevelationMedia.
Hi, this is Steve Cleary. Welcome to another episode of the iBIBLE podcast. Today I have two guests. We're going to continue our conversation about India and specifically the Telugu language. And I'm here with Chris, our Vice President of Kingdom Advancement, working on our staff, and one of our newest partners, and I'm gonna really try to pronounce your name right, Sastry.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yes.
Okay, good. I those who listen to me know it's one struggle I have. It's actually my hearing is not good with different tones and dialects. So I always sometimes struggle with people from other countries and their names. And I'm not even attempting your full name, but we're gonna go with Sastry, right?
Right.
Welcome, Sastry, and
thank you.
Welcome, Chris.
Hey, good to be here.
Now you guys were just, this is my first chance to meet you, Sastry, but you've been working with us a little bit with Chris. And Chris, you made a trip to India with your church, with RevelationMedia, and with Sastry's ministry. Tell us just briefly what that trip was.
Well, it was with my church, and our church funded the Telugu translation of The Real Story of Jesus. And so it was a really unique opportunity to get to go and be a part of what they're doing there, which is church planting. And the focus during the daytime was theological training, and some guys from our church who have that's their gift. And so they went through the whole New Testament in a few days with 160 pastors, teaching them how to teach the New Testament. And in the evenings, we went out to show the real story of Jesus in various villages. We split into two teams and went out 4 nights in a row to do that. And we actually also showed the real story of Christmas one night, and Sastry translated afterwards. They could follow the story in English.
Yeah, we didn't have it in...
Right, we didn't have it in Telugu yet. Yeah, but it was right after Thanksgiving. It was December, so it felt like a little pre-Christmas party, and we gave away the Real Story of Jesus book and coloring book to the children as an early Christmas gift, and that was a lot of fun.
So those of you who have been listening know that Telugu, for me, is becoming a very, very key language. We're working with Set Free Alliance, which, Sastry, I know you're familiar with their work in rescuing children sold in the slave trade. Tell us a little bit about your work. So it's a little bit different, where you're focused on pastor training and church planting, but you also confirm some of the same things that Set Free Alliance is telling us about what is going on in India.
Well, thank you. The ministry that I work for is called Rehoboth Ministries India, started by my parents in India in 1963. They are the first generation Christians God saved from Hindu religion. It's a completely miracle how my father met the Lord. And so as a result of their commitment and faith in the Lord, now we have a church planting movement that's happening in India. We helped plant 2,300 churches in India. We have work in all over India. Our primary focus is church planting. We train nationals who speak the same language, dialect, and send them back to their home countries, counties, districts, and towns and villages for the church planting ministry. And also we have a small orphanage that we rescue children from poverty, slavery, and we give them free education, food, and share Jesus with them. And also we rescue women from prostitution, slavery, poverty, landlords, and train them for 6 months with sewing skills, and that would help them to have revenue to take care of themselves. and also their kids, and we share gospel with them. And we do a lot of water wells. So we started work in South India, primarily among Telugu-speaking people, but now we have work in Central India and North India. So we have work in India in 9 different states.
And there are 28 states in India?
Yeah.
So you're working in 9 of those.
Right.
I want to back up because you gave us a lot of information, and I want to make sure for our listeners, and the term first-generation Christians, so they were Hindu, because obviously in India, the government sees how you're born is how you stay.
Right.
So if you're born a Christian, you might have less troubles. If you're born into a Hindu family, you're going to have a lot of troubles if you switch to Christianity.
Both ways. Like if you are born to a Christian family, you are still looked low because Hinduism is the primary religion of India. So most of our converts are from Hindu religion, and majority of them are first-generation Christians.
So the majority of the people so they would be converts from Hinduism, which is what's going to cause the persecution.
A lot, yeah.
And how much persecution are you seeing today?
A lot. It has grown. Churches are being demolished, and Christian women are being raped. In fact, when my father gave his life to Jesus Christ, his parents came to know about it, and they literally beaten my father and kicked him out of the house and the village. So even today, Christians face a lot of persecution. Pastors are physically being beaten. And in fact, my boys at the orphanage, they go to a public school and they talk about Jesus, and the school know that they are coming from a Christian school, and they are being persecuted every single day because they come from a Christian orphanage, and they talk about Jesus, sing Christian songs. So persecution is keep going high. It's increasing a lot.
Yeah, and obviously Modi has made public statements that his desire is to rid India of Christians.
Yes, he's an anti-Christian. After he became a prime minister of India, the persecution has severely increased. So
yeah, because it was a little bit on the decline, right?
Right. Yeah.
And then he came in, and is more of a radical Hindu.
Yeah. Now Hindus. In fact, in the past, Hindus were kind of being friends to Christians. They said, "Oh yeah, Jesus can be another god to us." But after he became the Prime Minister of India, he provoked all the Hindus for several reasons. Number one is Christianity is growing. Many Hindus and Hindu priests are coming to faith in Jesus Christ. And in India, the Hindu temples bring a lot of revenue to the government. And if all...
Oh, really?
Yeah. And Hindu temples are controlled or governed by the government. So they bring a lot of revenue, like all the billionaires and rich people, they go to Hindu temples and give a lot of money to get tax deduction and to please Hindu gods and to be popular among Hindus and to promote their businesses. So if all Hindus are becoming Christians and Hindu priests are coming to Christ, and they have to shut down the temples, and they have not enough income from the temple. So it's a political, economical, cultural factors involved in this aspect.
Oh, wow. I actually wasn't aware of, I didn't think about it that way. Obviously, I knew that there was a lot of persecution of Christians, but the economic, the political and economic state add to that. Also, I know that India may recognize 1%, 1.5% of the population being Christian. We believe from other people it's more like 2 or 3%, and you think it could be even higher than that.
Yeah, officially it could be 3%. But unofficially, it can be 5%. Many of them don't say that they're Christians in publicly because they will not get job, or they cannot get married, or could not find an apartment to live in. So they're more of like secret believers. Right now, we have a second batch of female students that we are training with sewing skills. And these are Muslim women. They've never been to church. They never had the opportunity to hear the gospel. And they come to the training center to learn sewing skills, how to stitch clothes and dresses. And we teach Bible almost every single day. And many of them give their lives to Christ, but they would never immediately tell to their husbands that they are believers, because if they say, immediately they will be killed or kicked out of the house.
Oh, really?
So
yeah.
It's because they face a lot of persecution. So there are many secret believers. We have one Muslim lady who come to church. She comes to the church with her burqa, Muslim dress, and she would remove that dress in the church and stays for the service.
Put it back on.
Put it back on when she goes, because if people notice her husband will divorce her immediately.
And people, I guess, don't realize that there are actually a lot of Muslims in India.
Oh yes, India has the second most populated most Muslims next to Indonesia. So it has a lot of Muslims. Like in my hometown, there are 7 major Muslim mosques.
Just in your home?
In my hometown.
Just in the hometown?
In my hometown. And that's, so many Muslims.
So Hinduism, obviously the biggest.
The biggest. And second is...
Second would be Islam.
Islam, yeah.
And Christian would be a minority, but it's growing very fast.
It's growing
we keep
really fast.
hearing it's growing very fast. And of course, 1963 to today is over 60 years, and 2,300 churches is a lot.
Yeah.
You know, that's a lot of growth over 61 years.
It's a God thing that we were able to train and plant, help 2,300 churches in India. And we hope to have few more once we have seminary. We wanted to train 200 church planters and plant 200 churches in a year in India. And soon we wanted to launch work in Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka, and Bhutan. So we are working in that way.
And Telugu is the major language you're working in, and it's your mother tongue, right?
Telugu is my hometown, and it's my mother tongue. I speak Telugu, my family. And so we started work in the state that speaks Telugu, and now we have work in Punjab, Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, Maharashtra, Karnataka, and Odisha.
Wow.
Yeah.
And Chris, what was it like when you were there to share? You know, I know you went, and it was exciting to share the real story of Jesus, which our listeners and our donors are obviously getting very familiar with the incredible impact that short 9-minute film has had. I know you talk about it a lot. What was it? Because you've really, have helped, and you've helped with raising money and doing translations of the real story of Jesus. And I hear you talk about it. I'm always encouraged when you talk about it. So how was it to actually go in the field and use it?
It was a lot of fun. Took me back to my Jesus Film days, which I worked with the Jesus Film Project for almost 3 decades. And what I love about this particular film is that it's short, it's engaging, it's fun to watch kids as well as adults just be fixed on the screen, and for them to get the gospel in less than 10 minutes. And I had never been to India. I had never really even desired to go. I think my pastor tricked me into going. He said he was going and tried to get me to go with him. And I felt like the Holy Spirit said, you should go. And so that's where I had interacted with Sastry on the phone and seen him at one little prayer event at our church here locally. But it was amazing to see the scope of what they've been able to do there over the many years.
And I know you sent me some pictures when you were in India, but you were also told not to take pictures. So there is a risk, obviously. So the pictures we might be able to show if you, Josh, would be able to add them. For those of you watching, I apologize that we can't show a lot of pictures of the kids. There is a danger, and we obviously don't want to do anything that would risk them. Sastry, you may have children that maybe just one of their parents is a Christian, or even their parents are not Christians. What is the danger of witnessing to children?
They will be beaten immediately if they know that, if the school or parents or relatives came to know that the child gave his life to Christ, or the child is going to the church, or child is learning Bible words, or child is learning Christian songs. When I say beaten, it's physical abuse and also mental abuse. They will be looked down low caste people, or they will not be given the same privileges in the school and the society and in the family. So we have seen people, and especially kids, being mistreated because they are Christians.
So the persecution goes all the way to the children.
Oh, yeah. For example, like I don't want to tell the name because it's going to be public. So this particular student is a bright student in school. And so the school has anniversary program one time a year. And so they recognize all the students. and give them medal or some kind of gift for doing well in their education sports. So this particular student is a Christian, and they invited a big Hindu priest to be the guest of that event. So every student, the tradition is like, will go bow to this priest, Hindu priest, touch his feet, bow him, then receive the medal. So this particular student said, I'm not going to do that because I'm a Christian.
Wow.
And this student, she got into trouble because she didn't bow to the Hindu priest. So it's very real.
It's amazing to know. I mean, people, I think our listeners would know more than, the average Christian about persecution around the world. And I've had a long history with Voice of the Martyrs and traveling to these countries. I've traveled to India. I've talked to families of martyrs. And so I'm very familiar with some of the persecution. And we published a short video once of children from the Dalits, the untouchables, that were beaten because they took water from a water well that didn't belong to them. And I know you said your ministry is also doing water wells because the Christians don't always have access to water wells and clean water. So there is just so much going on. And for those that have been following Revelation Media, we've made a strong commitment to Telugu, and I've learned a lot more about specifically the language and I didn't realize it's potentially the third largest language group in India, certainly the fourth largest. It's one, I guess you said it depends on who you're asking, whether it's Tamil or Telugu,
Marathi,
or Marathi, and so, but God has just opened the doors for us to work in the Telugu language. So we have the Real Story of Jesus translated. We're currently raising funds to translate all of Genesis and all the resources of Genesis. And over our lunchtime, you were telling me, you asked me an important question. You said, okay, so they watched the episodes, then what? And we shared with you all the resources we're going to have. You guys are very committed to follow-up. I mean, that's what excites us about partnering with you. You even said that you don't even count somebody a Christian until they've been discipled. Tell us about that.
Yeah. Well, we have so many, we do gospel crusades. We go to different villages, do a nighttime gospel crusades where we have sometimes 100 people, sometimes 300 people, sometimes we have 1,500 people. We present the gospel, and you have so many people wants to know more about Christ, and they want to follow Christ. So we take their contact info and we do follow. We believe the real conversion doesn't stop with decisions. You need to disciple that person. And we don't believe until they go through discipleship or start discipling, it's real conversion don't happen. So we take it very seriously. We do through a family Bible study groups, and using the movies, Bible study films and literature and Bible. And we are so much into discipleship and follow-up. And whatever we do with the intention to plant a church. We start the Bible study, then we launch the church plant. So we believe in so much follow-up and discipleship. Yeah.
How do you think, Sastry, iBIBLE can fit into your ministry?
First of all, we have done some work with Jesus Film Ministry. We have showed that movie into Telugu language and some in Hindi languages. We had two challenges with that. One, it's a long, and secondly, kids could get connected to it. It's more of adult film. So with iBIBLE, it's very short, and kids and adults can easily get connected. And it's also a Bible-based. It has the full story of Jesus and lots of episodes from the Bible. So that would be easy. We can show a episode and do the Bible study. So we are seriously thinking and praying to talk to my national leaders, see how we can implement iBIBLE in our convention.
Yeah, so your position is obviously in a leadership position. Your father founded the ministry, so you're the vice president of what we would call church planting.
Yes.
And so the 2,300 churches would be part, like we would call a convention.
Right.
They all network together, and I think it would be, I know you shared your vision is to share iBIBLE with all 2,300, but want to make sure that they see the value in it.
Right.
So it's not saying, here, use this, but tell me your strategy for using iBible among all 2,300
So
churches.
what we are thinking is, what I'm thinking, present this to the leaders, national leaders, and have them pray over it, watch multiple times, show in their local churches. And I want them to, if they really feel called to use these tools and iBible, I really want them to own this one. I don't want this to be like a one-time thing. If the Lord is in it and if the churches take ownership of it, we say a lifelong, long-term results, end results. And again, I want to use this iBible to plant churches. Like my strategy, if God willing, if the Lord is in it and if the churches take ownership in India, we want to show this one, then start immediately Bible studies, which will turn to be church planting. So we want to show iBible to the schools, which we did one time in India while you were there, and in the schools, in the colleges, and in the small groups and families and small streets and small house and on a grand level. So we want to take time to pray and to discuss, and I want everyone to, I can go ahead and promote it, but I just want the convention, the pastors and church plants to take ownership of it so that they own it and do it in a better way, efficient way.
And I really appreciate that. We obviously want to create a tool that churches can use and want. We've had tremendous response from India. We have Hindi already translated in a lot of content. And we were talking about, right now we have if we do Telugu, which I think is on the list this year for the real story of Jesus, right? Isn't that one of the languages? No, I'm sorry, for the real story of Christmas.
Yes.
Yeah, we already have the real story of Jesus. So for the real story of Christmas, and we have a reading plan, a 7-day reading plan for that. We have 42 weeks of study for our Genesis project. We are completing 16 weeks of study for the Pilgrim's Progress, and we have access to other content. And when I was sharing you with how much content we're trying to provide, especially when you asked the follow-up question, I saw your eyes grow, that we could have hundreds of, weeks of teaching, and it's all Bible-centric. And how is that needed? I mean, do you have like a library of content that you have available to you in the Telugu language? It's a major language.
We don't have much of Christian literature in Telugu language. We are working and we are praying that the Lord would bring an organization or people that would really help building literature like this. So having iBible, bringing up those many episodes, that would definitely would help.
Yeah, and we're just starting, we're hoping to release another dozen or so episodes this year. So as we start writing more resources, we have all the resources written for Genesis. The vision for all of iBible would give us about 300 episodes, which means about 300 weeks.
Wow.
And you think I'm doing the math real quick, but 6 years or something in content. And that doesn't include what we can do with our other content, with our special episodes, with the real story of Christmas, which hopefully will be, popular around Christmas time. That's why we made it. It's a seasonal presentation, but the real story of Jesus. And so I hope we can be that providing, because you're saying you have like 1 or 2 Christian films.
Yeah, we don't have many.
And so now we're talking, potential for hundreds. God willing, and I ask those listening or watching to pray for this, is that we've talked about establishing an office in your headquarters in India that would have full-time translation workers and build a studio similar to what we have here that you can start doing all the recordings. And so you become part of the solution. I've often said we don't want to be a service organization. We want to be a partnering organization. So we want to partner with you, Sastry, with your ministry, with the church leadership to provide content that makes sense for you. So I know it'll be interesting to see what happens after you meet with the regional leaders and see if this is something they want, because then it can lead to the establishment of a kind of a micro production facility for Telugu, which obviously would go beyond your ministry, because we're already working with other ministries with Telugu. And how many speakers are there? Do you know Telugu? I mean, I know it's over many. 200 million, right?
Yeah, many. I don't know in numbers, but many.
We'd have to look it up in Google.
Yeah,
and you're
Google,
telling us that also there's Telugu speakers in Bangladesh, there's Telugu speakers in Nepal. And so we're able to reach a huge, that becomes a major language for us.
Right.
I don't know how we conquer the 7,000 languages of the world. We keep checking them off.
It's the way you eat an elephant, one bite at a time.
One bite at a time. So one language at a time, and we look for these opportunities. But I think for us, people say, how do you decide? I mean, sometimes people look at the languages we work in and they said, it doesn't necessarily make sense to them, because if you put the world languages, up on a board and you put a checklist and you said, okay, Hindi, Mandarin, English, Portuguese, Spanish, French, all your big languages, we don't do that. We say who's the best partner, and what language do they need? So that's why Swahili was one of the first languages we worked in, because we had partners who wanted to distribute in Swahili. And now I think just on a recent podcast, we're got a commitment to reach 150,000 families door to door with our content. And so now with you're saying Telugu and the opportunity to go to 2,300 churches and to use Genesis as a Bible study program. I'm praying. I looked at I think we're about a third of the way to raising enough money for the Telugu translation of Genesis. But the other challenge we're having is that we're keep getting asked for more of the books and coloring books and crayons for the kids. And we've made a commitment especially to the kids that have been rescued from the slave trade. And you told me you listened to the podcast with Set Free Alliance, because what really touched my heart is they said, this is another way for them to understand Jesus. They don't trust people. They don't trust the workers, but they start coloring through the message of Jesus, and it's a different way. It's a different method of communicating the love of Christ with them. And you're also looking to use these books and coloring books as well. Chris, you said you distributed some, right, already?
Our church bought 1,000 of them, and we had them shipped to Sastry's village. We gave some out while we were there, and the plan is for them to distribute more as they go out and do these gospel crusades.
The challenge is we could distribute 100,000, which would cost about $500,000. So that's obviously a huge step of financing. So we're printing, sets of 5,000 at a time. But I have a commitment and a special heart for those who have been rescued from the slave trade, and I guess the orphan children would also feel like they're worthless, especially if they're a lower caste. And you're, from what I understand, and tell us more about it, for the caste system, which is supposed to be illegal, but we know is alive and well in India. How do you minister across all the different people in the caste system? So some people looked at higher society, and some people looked all the way down to the untouchables, where you don't even touch them.
Well, it's a very sensitive question and topic. So we have a high caste, then we have also a low caste called Dalits. They are not allowed to enter Hindu temples. In the past, they were not allowed to get an education.
Even if they're Hindu.
Yeah, they're not allowed.
Doesn't matter.
No, they're not allowed to go to.
So it's like a Christian. If we had this in Christianity, it'd be like, you're a Christian, but you can't go to church.
Right.
It'd be this equivalent to that, right?
And they're treated even lesser than an animal. And women are not allowed to wear a clothes that cover them on the top, and they cannot draw water from the same well. And if they happen to hear Hindu scriptures, they will put some liquid that they will lose hearing aid. They're treated very lowly. But when you go to them and love them, hug on them, and say that Jesus loves you, and you can come to church and eat with them, drink tea with them, and they would ask you, what makes you to love on us? Then you say it is the love of Jesus. And in fact, in my churches, I would say 60% of converts are from Dalit caste, low caste.
60%?
I would say. In some places, it's like 100%.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that because the area you're going on is more of...
We are more into a remote villages. We work in the villages that don't have gospel presence. Yeah. We go to the towns that don't have church. We go to streets. For example, like right now, in a month from today, if God willing, I will be in a region, in a small village that don't have a church. that don't have a Christian presence, and you don't see it on the map. So we are the first one to take the gospel, and there are so many people who are low caste, poor, and nobody loves on them. Nobody allows them to get education. And
So they're not going to be reading.
no, they don't know. They're very, very.
So is Dalit a specific caste, or is Dalit kind of a group of low caste?
Group of a low caste.
So it's not one specific.
No,
it can
there
be
are
many different castes that
yeah.
are basically, in Dalit would be, people have translated untouchable.
Untouchables, yeah.
Is that a literal translation of the word?
Yeah, yes.
And so if you're of a lower caste, you can be a different caste, but a Dalit would be
Right.
of what you're saying. You can't go to temple.
Yeah, you cannot go to temples.
Can't use the water well.
You cannot sit with a high caste person. And for example, like if a woman, high caste woman, is about to leave her house, and if the low caste person is passing by, she will go back to home inside because she's thinking some evil is going to happen to her because she has seen this low caste person.
Just
in the morning.
seen them.
Yeah.
And then I heard recently that, and I hadn't looked at it this way, that they justify it believing that they did something in a former life that was evil.
Yeah.
So it could be an innocent child, but you believe that child in a former life because of the belief
Rebirth,
of
incarnation.
Incarnation, the Hinduism, that they were evil person. So this is their punishment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And thankfully these days, many Dalits are trying to get education. They're getting good education. But still, the sad part is, until you die, you are in that caste. No matter how much money you make, how much education
or
you have.
How much good you do.
Yeah. You are still.
That's your punishment for
you're
life.
Still, yeah. And this happens all the time. Like recently, a Dalit guy married a girl who's from a rich caste. They both were going to same school. They fell in love. They got married without the approval of the parents, her parents. And this guy was with her walking on the street, and he was killed by her dad. Because
so he was killed by his
father-in-law.
His father-in-law, his wife's father.
Yeah. Because he's from the low caste, married a high caste.
And was this the man who killed him punished?
No. He's a rich man. He's a high caste. He has a political
Doesn't
background.
Matter. Yeah.
He's still.
So this is technically illegal, but just goes on.
Yeah. I mean, people say there is no caste system, but if you see our transcripts, on the transcripts you have to write your full name, your caste, your religion.
Which would be like our passport or identification card.
Yeah.
So we're not used to that in the U.S. We're not writing those types, that kind of information. We're not even writing what religion we may be tied to in a passport. But a lot of people don't realize in other countries, most other countries, you have to state what you are.
Yeah.
And so it's on
It's a very bad, evil practice in India. So that I feel like caste system is really causing so much trouble to the country. India can grow faster. India has a lot of potentiality. But because of the caste system, that is a big evil that is really crumbling India not to have big growth.
And you're saying the church growth is where the church growth is coming from?
Because church is loving on these low caste people, people who are Dalits and untouchables and who don't have access to, because they're desperate to know God. And because Hinduism doesn't allow them, Hinduism doesn't care them, and Islam doesn't accept them, they want to know.
So Islam won't accept them either?
No.
Do they kind of recognize that they're of a lower caste, even in Islam?
Yeah. And again, that's these Dalits cannot embrace Islam because it's completely different. They're born in Hindu culture and they cannot go to Islam. So Christianity becomes a big factor in their lives. When you go hug them, for example, like a year ago, my dad was telling me about a Dalit colony, a village. They don't have water well. And they were drawing water well from a high caste people. And these ladies were completely brutally beaten, physically was beaten because they were drilling water from that well. And though they don't have enough water to drink, they don't have water for their kids. So I was able to raise some support in the state side, went back and we did the water well.
Yeah.
And we didn't say anything And they asked us, why did you love us? Why are you giving us the fresh water? And we told them it's because of Jesus. Right now we have a church there because of that. And all these Dalits come every Sunday morning for worship service.
I mentioned before, I forgot how long it was. I don't know if you remember, Chris. We had that video we got sent a video from India, and just to show exactly what you're saying. So somebody had taken a video on their phone. I think the kids were like 12, 10, 12, 13 years old, and they were being beaten by adults with these long poles. Is a common beating, right, with these long poles in India, and they were beating these kids, and it was really horrific to watch. I may actually, send it again to our readers because I want them to know the reality of this, and it just broke my heart. We warn people, use discretion watching this. It was just awful. The kids were screaming, and everybody standing around was just watching. Nobody was trying to stop. And I'm like, why are these kids being beaten? And they said, because they drank water from a well of a higher caste. And that's why they were being beaten. And we definitely support Water Well Ministries, and we're working with a clean water ministry called the Bucket Ministry. And, of course, Set Free Alliance is also doing clean water wells. But I wanted to, for us, we're not in the Water Well Ministry, but I wanted to partner. And so we made a commitment at that time that we would do the best we could to bring Jesus to Dalit children. I didn't know how. I didn't have any idea how it would happen, what we'd do. I don't know if you remember how long ago this was, Chris. I think it was about a year and a half ago. Do you remember?
A little over a year, yeah.
About a year ago. I never knew you'd be going to meet
I never knew I'd get to go.
With Dalit children. And now here you're telling me that. And so now we have the iBIBLE episodes, we have the Real Story of Jesus books, coloring books, going to Dalit children. And I kind of really struggled with me after I said that, because I said, I have to do it. I mean, I don't want to say something. And we had people donate, so we were able to use those funds. And now we're donating more. And thank you for explaining to us that, Dalit is just not necessarily one group, but it's a term among all the lower caste.
Yes.
And we're starting with Telugu. We want to go to other languages. We're already working in Hindi. We want to work in the major languages of India, and we want to partner with those like you. I mean,
Thank you.
We love to go visit, but I won't blend in very well in India. I don't think you did either.
I didn't either. So.
And Chris, it was amazing because we're like, we're going to start working in Telugu, and Chris says my church is working in a mission in Telugu. So I think it was kind of a, I don't know. I like to think it's kind of a divine.
It was. It really
kind of a God thing that your church sent you to India.
Yeah.
But iBible's like, yes, go take the books, and then you guys donated. The church donated for us to print 1,000 extra sets. So it's the book, the coloring book, and the crayons. I want to emphasize that because it really gives them something to do.
Yeah.
An activity.
I think the more they interact with it, it's just going to ingrain the message into their little hearts.
Yeah, and they've been told at that point in their life that's all they've known is they've been worthless. I mean, what do their parents tell a child of Dalit? I mean, they just say, "This is who we are, and we just accept this."
Well, the system that they are grown up. For example, like in a town. Dalits don't live with everybody. They're not allowed to live with everybody. They have their own colony, their own streets that they live in.
So they're in their own community.
Yeah.
They're not interspersed into higher caste communities.
High caste people don't stay with them, and they would not allow Dalits to come and live with them. Dalits are only hired to do some very low work.
So they can come into work.
Yeah. Not every work again. There is a certain type of low work that...
Like sweeping
or cleaning the toilets or cleaning the dishes or mopping
very menial
or taking
task.
the dead animal or something like that. So, or polishing your shoes, cleaning your shoes, things like that. So even in the school, among the kids, they talk about caste system. The high caste guy tried to control the low caste kid, even they're like 4 years or 5 years, 10 years, the way they dress, the way they bring the books, because low caste people don't have enough clothes to wear. High caste person comes, student comes, boy comes with a good dress. and the names is different, and the skin color is different, the food they eat is different. So easily you can identify by their names and food and colors and the village and the neighborhood they come from. So
Of course, the way they talk would also be
accent,
their accent would be would be a lot different because they're just so much poverty.
Poor, yeah.
We have to close this episode of our podcast, but the last question, actually, I have two questions for you. How many, you guys said you had an orphanage now and you're taking in orphans. How many orphan children are with you?
Right now we have 13 boys. We started in 2001. We take only boys because of government thing. We have some, they said you cannot keep boys and girls in the same building.
Right.
We don't have enough resources to have both boys. When we started, we had boys and girls. Now we ended up with boys. Hopefully we will have girls soon. We have seen many kids come to faith at the orphanage. We have seen many graduated already, become lab technicians, computer.
Because you're obviously educating them, something they would not get on their own.
What we do is we take them in, we send them to school. We don't have a school. We send them to public school. We give
But you have to pay for that. You have to pay
Very
for their
little.
books and stuff.
Tuition, very little. And we buy their textbooks and we give them clothes. And every single day we teach Bible. Every single day, morning and evening, we teach Bible lesson and a couple of songs, and we pray. We help them to pray, teach them to pray, how to pray. So we have seen that life transformation, and we have seen kids getting married, and we did their weddings many times, and
Nice.
to some kids, and we have seen them leading their spouses to the Lord, and we are in the process of starting a Christian school so that we can teach Bible every single day, and we want to have 250 kids. Orphan kids and in the community. So we are very excited.
And you still have some books for them, right?
Yes,
Some of
we
the
do.
sets.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And so Chris will stay on that too.
Yes.
Because I think they've told you have to come back. I don't think they invited you. I think they ordered you back.
Sastry's working on me now. So
So
he's like,
I think
Yes.
others have said you have to go back,
yeah,
right?
he has a wonderful plan for my life.
God.
Well, obviously, we're very supportive of that. Very thankful for you being here,
Thank you.
and Chris, thank you for
This has been fun.
being able to lead the work there. Obviously, we need more people to do the work. And I always ask people when we end how we can pray for them, so you can answer that. My prayer is that, God willing, we would establish a micro center at your church headquarters for Telugu. And so your church can use material, we can partner together. Because like I said, we want your workers, and we can train them, and you can train them to do the editing, the translation, even the video compiling, the exporting, make it available on social media. You're telling me how everyone's getting phones, even the poor people, because they give a phone free for 6 months in India, and so we know they'll have access to phones and they can watch the iBible episodes. But Sastry, how can our listeners pray for you?
First of all, pray for Christians in India to have endurance. We don't ask for that we run away from the persecution, but we would have love and patience, gentleness to endure the persecution. So pray for Christians there. And secondly, pray for all these church planters. Every year we continue to train church planters to start new churches. They just go by faith. They don't know where their next salary is going to come from. We don't promise that we will support them, but we do support them certain ways. So pray for these church planters as they face persecution, as they plan new churches in remote villages and small cities. Pray that the Lord would be with them, encourage them. And finally, pray for the kids. That's a very, very important prayer, because pray that they would feel love, God's love. The people that we rescue, the children that we minister to, pray that they would feel God's love and that they will have a better future. They feel equality.
Yeah, they would. They know they're valued. We say we really want. That's really they feel. They're told they're worthless, but we want to tell them how much they're worth in Jesus.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the iBible podcast with Chris and Sastry, and please remember to pray for them and for us as we expand our work into India, and specifically in the Telugu language among the Dalits and the rescued slave children. Until next podcast, God bless.
The iBible Podcast with Steve Cleary, brought to you by Revelation Media. This episode was produced by Joshua Burton and Aaliyah Gonzalez, with original theme music by Xperia. Subscribe to stay up to date on new episodes and iBible content, and visit the show notes for more information and resources from today's show.